yourself.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our community webinar, ClickUp's Quick Flicks. Please do say hello in the chat, and please do leverage it. You'll see it over there on the right-hand side. Let us know where you're from, what you do, and also you can see as well, we've got a Q&A section as well. So any questions you have, please do feel free to pop them in there. I will say we have quite a large number of people on today, which is amazing to see. So we might not be able to get to all of your questions. If we don't, though, please, if you still have some burning questions that you need answered, please do leverage support@clickup.com or help@clickup.com, and we'll be sure to get your questions answered. I will also ask that this webinar is about the latest features from ClickUp released in the last 60 days. Please do keep your questions relevant to this. If you have questions about your own account or something different, please do leverage that support or help@clickup.com. But we will try to get to as many questions as we want, as we can. And then also we will have a little bit of a live Q&A section at the end where we'll try to address some of the questions too. I just dove into all that without introducing myself. Hi, I'm Orla Mulligan. I'm based in our Dublin office in Ireland, and I am the community marketing manager here looking after EMEA and APAC. So welcome to you all. It's so great to see such a wonderful community here today. I'm delighted to introduce my colleague, Garth Thompson, who is a principal solutions engineer here at ClickUp, and honestly, just a ClickUp wizard. I couldn't have a better companion sharing all of the new features today. So I'm incredibly grateful to have him online. So with that, I'm going to pick straight off. He's got so many cool new features to run through. So I'm going to let him introduce himself and dive into the demo, and then I will pop back on afterwards for some Q&A. So Garth, over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Orla. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Garth Thompson. I'm one of the solutions consultants here at ClickUp. I've been with the company now for about 3 years. And what I'll be doing, talking to you today through the community webinar is really around some of, as Orla said, around some of those new releases and features that we've released over the last couple of weeks. So what I'll start off, I'm going to quickly share my screen and we can kick off with the feature list. So just let me share my screen and brilliant. Great. So I think everyone can see that. So what I'll go on today is I will talk a little bit about what we have released. I'll go through some of the custom colors and icons. I'll look a little bit around the ClickUp Desktop 3.0, some formula fields that we've released into the dashboards. Talk a little bit about the audit log, some about the new mobile changes or the mobile comments and editors that we've enabled. The dashboard view, which is actually quite exciting, that you can apply at anywhere in your hierarchy. Some of the automations around the personal list, formula fields, some of the Teams integration with our new Teams release. And then obviously what I'll talk around then is talk about sort of task updates and automation or the triggers. Right, so let's dig into it. So first of all, the first piece I'm going to talk about is I'm excited to share that, we've released custom icons and colors for our lists and folders. This will allow you to personalize your workspace in a few different ways, right? So as you can see, what I have here in my portfolio view, just a very simple example, is if I go into a list, right, you have the ability to click on there and you can see by this new color icon, right, you can see we have all the icons and some of the sort of the color schema there. Now, by default, the list icon will be set by the default task type. So for example, if you have a particular task type, what will happen is the default task type icon will be displayed in your list, right? You can obviously override this through any of the list settings that we can go through. Okay, great. So that's the first sort of feature that we sort of touched on there, right? Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about our desktop ClickUp Desktop version 3.7, right? We've just released a new desktop app, very exciting. In addition to loads of security updates, some bug updates, we've also improved sort of the version brings new exciting features that will help you from productivity, right? One of these features is we're always talking about when we're doing a copy and paste, right? Is the ability to bring up your clipboard history, right? This is a powerful search. You can access it from anywhere. You can look at your keyboard shortcuts. You can have a look at your history feature. You can have a look at some of the histories that you may have copied as well. Also, what this will allow you to do is this will also allow you to then, you don't need to switch between windows really if you want to copy and paste, right? In relation to that. What this will also allow us to do is directly go into, let's say, into our history settings. In the history settings, what you have the ability to do here is, just in a second as that comes up, you have the ability to toggle it on, toggle it off, and also your retention period that you have the ability to set when doing that. Okay. Some other nice new features in the desktop app is your desktop now supports opening items natively from within the application, right? For instance, if you had to show a calendar or a command, that would open it up natively. The navigation bar at the top here, as you can see, we've got the arrow, right, which will allow you to go back and forth in relation to that. And then also, obviously, in your desktop settings, you have the ability to go into preferences and you can set any of those desktop settings that you need to here, right? If you need to click calendar in the menu bar so you can see upcoming events as an example. So if I toggle that on, right, you'll see what will happen is if I do have it linked with my calendar, you'll see a little menu that will show up on any calendar items that might start up there. Brilliant. Okay. Now I'm very excited to move on, right? And I think the next new sort of area I'm really going to touch on is formula fields in dashboards, right? This is formula fields in our bar charts. So as an example, what I have here is I just have a, let's say, a dashboard here, which is a blank dashboard. What I'm going to do in this scenario here is I have the ability to create a custom bar chart using formula fields. So in this example here, what I've done is you can see that I can select access, and this will allow us to do a couple of things, right? You'll be able to report on data such as total profit, time remaining. This will unlock advanced sort of reporting activities. What this allows you to do is the x-axis, right, will allow the date, it will allow a string, and it'll allow you Boolean. When you look at your y-axis, as you can see down here, your y-axis will also allow you to look at a number, right? So for this example, I'm going to select just the rice, and we'll have a look at that in a second. Then thirdly, when I do the group by, I can click on group by. You can have a look at formula fields. And in the formula fields, what this will allow me to do is, secondly as well, allow me to group by date, string, or any Boolean. So let's quickly do a quick example. I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to create a completely, let's say, new dashboard. I'm going to add a new, let's say, custom bar chart. And what I'm going to select here is I'm going to select the formula field. Let's say that we're going to do the y-axis by formula, and I'm going to select rice, and I'm just going to group by, let's say, by status. And if I hit OK, what we'll do now is you'll see at this level, you can see I've grouped by status. But if I drill into it, you will see that it has picked up my formula fields. This is great. This is really exciting. So these are 3 areas where formula fields can be used in a bar chart. Okay, next I'm going to talk about audit logs. This has been a very exciting announcement from us, right? This is now live in production. It's been significant enhancement, increasing sort of security, transparency, especially for our enterprise customers. What the audit logs allows me to do is if I go into settings and I click on audit logs, and I'm just going to filter by me. This will allow workspace owners to control the audit logs based on user roles, right? You can create custom roles, which will allow you to set permissions on the audit logs. Also, what this allows you to have a look at is, why is it important for us, right? For security and compliance, provides clear tracking on all critical actions within the platform, right? Which is essentially audits, investigation, compliant reporting, and so forth. So while we had this audit logs in beta, we received some really positive feedback from our customers, showing the true value that it really brings to our community, right? But hold on, we're not stopping there, right? Some additional events will be added with the audit logs throughout the development of this in Q3 and Q4, ensuring even a more robust tracking and insight around the audits. But as you can see here from an audit logs, you can see the type of events that you might want to have a look at. You can have a look at potential successes and fails of it, and also potential dates on events that you might be looking at from that point of view. So this is, as we talked about audit logs, this is live now in production for all our enterprise customers. Great. Now I'm going to move on to, let's say, our mobile update, right? We've updated our mobile app, right, which is very exciting. As you can see here, I have a very high level example of ClickUp on a mobile device. And what this allows me to do then is, for example, if I have a task in just my personal list, as you can see, I can scroll through it. It's quite nice and easy. But if I go into my activity and I'd like to, let's say, @mention someone, right? What this allows me to do is I could @mention a user, right? As you can see, it brings up the user. It will allow me to do the double @, right? Which will then allow me to mention a particular task if I needed to, okay? In a list, in my personal list. It's only showing my personal list here because I only have the one particular task. Or if I needed to, I can use the 3 @, and what this will allow me to do is it'll allow me to also mention any documents, right? Some further enhancements that we've made to this is the improvement of our copy and paste functionality. We've improved video and photo uploads, right? As an example. So I can just click into there and I can say allow. And what this will allow me to do is I can simply just click on a particular video and I can say upload, right? And what that will allow me to do is that will say select. And as you can see, the upload is there and it's made it quite nice and easy for the video and, photo uploads. More editing capabilities for complex commenting. If you're processing long pieces of tasks, if you're looking at your task description in a little bit more detail, and if you look at the overall detail, or let's say just the overall detail of the task in itself, right? One of the major improvements that we've done is improved sending and receiving, especially if you're working on your mobile and your signal might not be as strong, is really around the sending through, let's say, a slower connection. We also have the ability to invite a potential user, right, with the @command. So if you need to invite someone to collaborate with you on the task that's not within ClickUp, you can add the email and you can simply click invite, which will allow them there to get access to that task. All right. So that is great. Some updates from a mobile perspective. As you can see, the look and feel is very slick. It gives you the ability to then sort of navigate through. You can change your workspaces, potentially look at some dashboards that you might be working on from that point of view as well. Okay. Right. Next, I'm really going to talk about is around dashboard views in a template. Okay. If, for example, we look at, and I'm going to go back to my let's say to my project management, and I'm going to look at my sort of portfolio list. And what we have here at a very, very high level is we have the ability to now add let's say, dashboards as a view, right? This is really important because this allows you to bring your dashboards into areas within ClickUp which are more relevant. Whether if you're looking at a list level, at a folder level, or even at a space level, when you save that as a template, the view actually gets saved, right? This has been a long time coming, and we're very excited to finally unlock these capabilities for our users, right? Now the customers can include their reporting. We can create and use repeatable workflows. And this should give you a higher discoverable of the dashboards throughout ClickUp and the platform that's being used. So what we do now is if we go to this portfolio and, for example, I had to say save as a template, what that will allow me to do is when I save that as a template, it will save that view. As we know before previously, it will save all the views that were due as part of that list, but also including the dashboard view. Brilliant. All right. So as I move on to the next piece, I'm going to talk about, and I'm quite excited to really talk about sort of this functionality, right? And it's around a lot of the enhancements that we've put into your personal list, okay? So if I click into my home view, right, as an example, I have a personal list. Now, what you have the ability to do here is you can create automations to your personal list to unlock all the automation functionality that we know within the platform, right? So as you can see here, by clicking on the automate your personal list, you then have the ability to create a couple of automations. So for example, in this automation, what I've done is I said when a task is created, change the assignee. I've also said, okay, when the assignee is changed or when the duration changes, change the status. And then thirdly, what I've done is we said, okay, when the custom field is set, let's generate, let's generate an AI update. So let's run this through. Let's do a quick example. So I'm just going to go in here and create a list, and I'm going to say sample task, and I'm going to say enter. So as you can see from this perspective now, what I have is I'm going to change the due date, let's say to Friday. What will happen there is you will see that the automation then, as we can see from the first one, is when a task is created, change the assignee, right? So when the assignee is changed, what will happen is those automations will now be triggered when the custom field is updated and the duration is changed. So for example, if we can see that the duration is changed there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say, right, we want to change that. Now that automation is going to get triggered. And what will happen is in that scenario there, as you can see, it's updated to in progress, right? And what it also allows me to do is at the sample task level, right, you'll see that that automation task there will update the trigger on saying, okay, let's have an update from AI. And those are the three automations I put in. So why is this important, right? It allows you to unlock the automations at a personal list level. When you open up the personal list, you can then sort of set automations like maybe when I add a new task to my personal list, send a reminder when the due date arrives, okay? You can then update the trigger to say when a task is updated, you can then set out some actions based on when a task is updated, which is also another one. So tasks updated, we can trigger an automation. We can look at a formula field within automations. So again, as we were saying earlier on, this is a formula field, and you have the ability to go in and say, okay, if a task is updated, let's update the latest task. And from a formula perspective is when I go in here and you can say, okay, when the formula field duration is updated, change it to in progress. And we saw this through the exercise there. As we said, when I changed the due date, what happened is it moved from done to in progress.
Sorry to interrupt
Yes.
you super quickly. Some people are struggling to see and wondering if you would be able to zoom in.
Sure.
They're just struggling to see some of it. And also, just in case people are unaware, on the right bottom hand corner, just in case you have it on a smaller screen, you can make it larger as well. And this will also be recorded. So if there's anything you kind of missed, you will be able to go back and see it as well. So sorry about that, and sorry to interrupt you, Garth.
No problem at all. Is that a bit better, Ola?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, much better. Great. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. So as we can see, just to continue, I'll quickly do a quick recap there. Couple of new features that we've added in at the personal list level is you have the ability to add automations at a personal list level. As you can see, you can unlock all the automations, task created, status change. A new one that we spoke about earlier on is the task or subtask updated. This will allow you to automate actions based on updates to particular tasks. So if you add a comment or let's say a status change, you can then trigger a follow-up action based on that, right? And then also what we spoke about is you have the ability, for example, if I just go in here, you can then trigger also off a formula field, which is also very exciting. All of these, and I see one of the questions is, can these automations be applied? Not just at your personal list level. These automations can be applied at any list level, at a folder level, and as well as a space level. Okay, so just a quick recap before I get on to the last piece. So we looked at the custom colors. We looked at the new updates in the desktop 3.4 update. Some very exciting updates with regards to our formula fields in bar charts, unlocking some real functionality there, giving you the ability then to create some advanced reporting capabilities, audit logs, some new comments on the mobile app. The dashboard views as templates is a important one. And then obviously the three that I sort of grouped there was the task updates around automation triggers, formula fields in automations, and then lastly, obviously, having the ability to automate, and build out automations in your personal list, allowing you to, add a comment, allowing you to trigger some actions based on actions or even tasks updated in your personal list as well. Brilliant. And then lastly, what I wanted to talk about is just our new sort of Teams integration, right? The new Teams integration is a really exciting one to say. This integration has been one that has been requested quite highly. So what I want to talk about now is what's new, okay? So what I've done here is at sort of this sort of scenario here. So first of all, you can connect your Teams through your App Center. So what this will, if we just quickly go into your App Center, you can have a look there. And if you click on Teams, you have the ability then to sync activities, maybe from different locations to different channels. Okay. You then can create a task. You'll have the ability to preview links from within Teams in your tasks as well, in relation to that. Okay, so first of all, let's quickly go back to Teams. All right, one of the new things I really want to highlight here is just part of the Teams integration is we have the ability now to say, okay, what we want to do is we want to, let's say, create a new task called release notes. So I'm going to just select it into my portfolio list and I'm going to click next. And what this will allow me to do then is, as you can see, this will be the, let's call this Microsoft Teams project, as you can see. And what this will allow me to do then is create a task. I can set my due date. I can then set my assignee, which I'm just going to say, let's say Owen, and my due date, let's say I'm going to say today. Priority, I'm going to say is high. Boom. Now, what that would have done is that would have created a task in, as you can see, the location under projects, intake, and portfolio list. I can then click on the actual task itself. And as you can see, it's created the task directly, maybe from within a post that I might have created within uh, uh, within Teams. Now, if I come back to the actual release notes itself, and as you can see, what I've done here is I've actually referred to our release notes, right? I've taken and embedded a URL, right, just into a comment, and you can see that it's really sort of previewed that particular document. But if I want to take that same document now, and let's say I just want to add it to a comment, I can simply just go in and I can say add to comment, and we can select the actual task that we wanted to select. And I'm going to say, and we maybe want to assign the comment to someone, right? If we want to save it to Dave, and I'm going to hit add. Now, as you can see, what this will allow me to do, it will say the view the comment. When I open that up, right, you will see now I have the comment that's been added in. You can see that it's been assigned to Dave, right? And also it's added in sort of the preview link from Microsoft Teams that we have there. So just a quick recap. As you said, you can connect it using your App Center. You can create your tasks. You can create, you can paste rich links, into your comments, into your docs, as we can see from the channel itself in relation to that. So you can then sort of preview that. And then secondly, on top of all of that, is you have the ability to set up ClickUp. As we looked into the activity piece, you can set up your activities. So what would you like to be notified about? Okay. Task creation, status changes, new comments, and when I'm potentially mentioned on a particular task itself in a particular location. And in this case, it would be the sales CRM. Now, if we have a look at that, as you can see, I've added the comments. We've talked about sort of the Zapier integration and comments that we've added in. And that really allows us then to talk about sort of real-time updates in your preferred Teams channel. That's fantastic. As you can see, that's it's a big improvement on that Teams integration that we've worked with. But it's not all where we're going to stop there. We're going to be looking at our users. We're going to be looking, obviously, providing feedback as we enhance this integration and as we work a little bit more in relation to that. All right. So just going back, as we said, the last piece there was the Microsoft Teams integration that we spoke about. And that brings a whole new rich features. So as you can see, we've released some really fantastic features over the last couple of weeks. And that's just a quick snapshot of everything that we've released over the last couple of weeks. And I think we'll open up now for a couple of questions, if that's okay, Ola.
Yes, absolutely. Firstly, I do want to say a massive thank you to everyone who was asking us to zoom in and make some improvements. A quick apologies for me. This is our first one of this type of webinar, and it is my first webinar. So really, really appreciate that. And we're going to take all the feedback and hopefully just make these better and better as we go on. But we have loads of questions coming in. So really excited to dive into it. I know seeing as the last one we kind of spoke about, the last big one there was the Microsoft Teams integration. Sorry, I had them here. Does the Teams integration work only on channels or maybe also in calls and chats? They were asking.
Yeah, so if you had a particular chat as well, right, you also have the ability then to set. It's mostly from a Teams perspective at this stage, because the idea around that from an integration standpoint is, if you need to collaborate with different teams or different channels, where you specified your setup from that perspective.
And there's a question on automations, and they were asking, will they be reflected only to new tasks created, or will they also be reflected on old tasks as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So coming down to automations in general, right? If we're talking about the automations in the personal list, It really depends on whether or not you set the trigger. So it could be old tasks that might be updated, not just new tasks. So for example, if you say updated, if it's an old task and it's updated for whatever reason, and then you set the trigger, it'll be updated as well. So it'll do both new tasks and old tasks if using task updated.
Amazing. And then I have a question here about setting a date to today when, I have a question about setting a date to today. When I create an automation with set date to today, it stays on the date of automation, date created.
Okay.
Um,
Can you just
so
repeat that again, Ola?
yeah, I'm wondering, Sylvie, if you could clarify a little bit. I can see there it's a question about setting the date to today. So when they create an automation with set date to today, it stays on the date of the automation date created. So I think it's not updating to today. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. So I think the automation, we just need to understand a little bit about what the trigger is, right? If it's set to today. So if the trigger is update task and you want to change your due date, when I update the task, that will trigger the update of the due date. Or if the automation is set to if the due date arrives, right, that will trigger off an additional automation on top of that. It really is, the trigger is what's the event that's going to happen, right? Based on the event. So for example, if you had due date, right, if due date arrives or if due date changes, right, is the trigger, and then you can set your follow-on action based on that as well, right? So for example, you might say, change due date, right, to X number of days before or after the trigger. So if the trigger happens today and you say by 2 days, the due date will then get set 2 days after the trigger of the automation.
And then can we assign wait age to subtasks and then automate to add those wait ages to the parent tasks to track how much of the parent task is complete?
Wait ages. So if you're using wait age, if I understand that correctly, the weighted age can be used to trigger the automation, because that would be seen as a formula field potentially. If in an example you might have two drop downs and do a calculation, and your drop downs might be let's say numbers, right? A scale from 1 to 5, and there's a calculation. And let's say your trigger on the custom field might be if I reach a calculation of 5, then trigger the automation. However, the automations then are, as you can set up, you can say, okay, when the automation triggers, you can say just only on a subtask level or at a task level. For example, in this example is if there was a weighted formula that was triggered off a formula field, you could say, okay, when this is changed at a subtask level, then you can have a second automation to say, once this is changed, update the task with this action. So it would be a combination of maybe 2 or 3 automations to say, subtasks do this, and then once this is complete, then update your parent task, which would be your task with the condition that you might have put in.
And they've just followed up there saying, I want to add to the task wait age if the subtask is closed. Is that possible?
You could update that. I mean, the task is closed. Now, if you're using, permissions on the custom fields with a custom field manager when that's released, obviously you can put some rules around that. So the wait age really depends on you be able to make those changes, and if it's only certain users with access roles when custom field manager permissions are coming out, then you'll be able to control that a little bit better. Yes.
And we have another question here. Is it possible to count data by tracking data from different spaces from a specific column or fields, or the sum of this column?
If that column is, when you're setting up your dashboard, as an example, if you go into dashboards, and you, let's say, just click on the actual dashboard itself, and you have the formula field that you might want to use, you can specify in which location you want. So if that field is applied in multiple locations, you should be able to, you can aggregate that data up by multi-selecting your location across different areas in your workspace.
And then we have another question here. Can we have the time and status to calculate / add up only weekdays and exclude Saturdays and Sundays?
So the time in status itself, no, but you probably could use a formula field to maybe do a particular calculation based on time in status and some formula field. But I would just need to, something I would just need to double check in relation to that and see how we reference that in relation to the automation.
And then we have another question. With time tracking subtasks, you see in the head task that the total time, but you cannot see what time was tracked from what subtask. Is there a way where to see where the time came from?
So that would be from a roll-up perspective, and that's an area, for example, when the roll-up is there, it's an area that we're going to be sort of expanding on to say, once I have a roll-up, let's say from task A and B, it'll, when the roll-up and you click on your time spent, it will reference the task and where the task was logged on this, which subtasker was logged on the roll-up when you click on the overall calculation of those tasks, as you said. So the roll-up then will reference, it's an area that, yes, we're looking to from a time tracking point of view, so you can see where, if you have multiple subtasks, where you've logged your time on top of that. That is something that we have spoken about internally, and with something we're going to be looking around sort of time tracking.
And can, in automation, the due date action, not the trigger, sorry, one sec. When I set the start date and task automation without calculation when this task will be finished manually, I need to calculate this end date automatically, taking into account weekends, public holidays.
Yeah. So that is, so what we are working on from a general sort of scheduling perspective is we're doing some enhancements around the scheduling around tasks. So for example, things like duration and areas around that, where you'll have the ability to, you know, maybe set the date and you set a duration, and we should dynamically at some point then sort of based on the duration give you the end date from top of that. But these are all areas from a scheduling perspective that we're really working on, and the product team is really focusing on some key areas in relation to that, which is going to bring some really fantastic enhancements to the scheduling elements around ClickUp.
Amazing. And then I have a question here, and I'm not 100% sure if we'd be able to dive into this, but I will read it out. I have a situation where Capito creates tasks on ClickUp as help tickets, and what happens is they're worked on and we change status accordingly. However, we've been wanting to automate what happens after we move the task to close. So when we close off the task, we want to trigger an automation that prompts us to state what error type that particular task was when we move that task to close. We've tried to create automation, but nothing is working. And just because this seems like very, very specific, Garth, I don't know if this is something you can answer. If not, I would highly recommend just emailing support@clickup.com with screenshots as well. They are very, very good at kind of diving into this very specific level. Would that be the best action there, Garth?
Yes, I think that would be the best action there, because we probably just need to understand the process a little bit more so we can then sort of facilitate on the action. But it sounds like that there will be a few different automations, not just one automation, but there might be one or two that will be dependent on certain actions within with when a task is closed.
And then Sylvie, we're jumping back to you. Sorry we didn't answer your question fully the last time. So I created an automation with several actions. One of these actions is setting a column change date in that column. I set it on today, but when the automation runs, for example, the day after or the week after in the column, change date is still the day the automation was created. So it appears that the today is not acting as a dynamic. Is that correct? So you want it to stay as today constantly.
Yeah. Well, if it's not triggering on today, again, what I would suggest there is just let's investigate that a little bit. Let's get email support on top of that, because if the date arrives, maybe try date arrives as today and see what happens based on that. But the trigger, the automations run periodically, and if that value is today, something's not firing there as an example. So we just need to try and understand a little bit more on top of that, but we can follow up with that one, Sylvia.
Wonderful. Can we automate if the child's task is reopened and then the parent task also gets reopened from its closed status? And if the child task is marked as complete, the parent task also changes its status to close. Is it possible to automate the process so that if a child task is reopened, the parent task also reopens from its closed status? Similarly, when the child task is marked as completed, the parent task status should automatically change to closed as well.
To complete it. I'd say there's a few different ways we can do that. So you would use, I would say, a combination of task type, and a few conditions to identify the subtask. And then obviously, then based on the same condition, that would then trigger on the task type and the conditions, which would look at your parent task as an example, right? So if a status is changed and condition is, let's say, task type is called subtask, right? Open the parent task, which is in relation to that. But again, like some of these things are the automation areas is an area we're really focusing on, especially when it comes down to parent tasks and subtasks on things like, once we've opened the parent task. Once we've resolved all of them, close the parent task in relation to that. But a lot of these can be done through certain conditions. If not, all the automations might not meet your requirements. You could also, use things like, an iPass solution for a more advanced, using our API for maybe a more advanced sort of condition into areas like this.
With that, we have just under 2 minutes left, so I am going to wrap up there. I see there is so many more questions coming in, which I'm so grateful for everybody taking the time to come to this webinar to ask the questions. I am very sorry we're not able to get to them all, and I know for a few as well, we were saying that either reach out to help or support. I do really highly recommend reaching out to them. I work with a few of them here in the Dublin office, and they are so incredibly knowledgeable, and what they can offer is like really digging into your own use case. So like, why isn't it working? What exactly are you looking for? On these, again, we also only get like a very high level glimpse into what you're trying to do. So please do reach out to them. They're a really wonderful support we have here at ClickUp. Again, thank you for bearing with us through some technical difficulties. This is the first of our ClickFlix webinar, and hopefully the first of very many to help you stay on top of all of the wonderful new features that will be coming out. I will be reading all the comments afterwards to take in any feedback that you do have, and I will be sure to implement them for the next time. And also, we will be sending follow-up emails with some insights and resources as well to help you make the most out of these features. So thank you all so much for your time, and I really hope to see you back at the next ClickUp's Quick Flicks. And also a massive thank you to Garth, who was put in the very hot seat there. And I just seen a question pop up there. This will be recorded and it will be sent out to you all very shortly after we finish this. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day, and thanks for your time today.